Hi, it's Peter Schweizer, and welcome to the Drill Down. Well, I've characterized immigration and mass migration as civilizational warfare. Is the latest weapon deployed in this war a bad bunny? We're going to look at the Super Bowl show, not unpack it artistically, but look at the deeper meaning behind what was actually going on. And I'm going to do that with the co-host of the show, Eric Eggers. Eric, how are you?
I love that now in your continued perch as the author of the #1 book on the New York Times bestseller list for the second, possibly third week in a row, you now have elevated your status as not just someone who can comment on the various threats that this country faces, but you now can, we can talk about Super Bowl shows. My goal for this podcast, by the way, is to get you, by the time we're done talking about Bad Bunny, to be like, "Aye, puppy!" I think we can do it.
Not going to happen. But I will say, as we were preparing for the show, I thought, 30 years ago, I was combing through the archives of the Cold War, like Soviet files, CIA files, and now I'm looking at translated lyrics from a Puerto Rican rap artist. So that's where we are. But this, I think, is a really important topic because aside from all the artistic questions, right, about, using Spanish instead of English and the display and the songs and all of that, I do really feel like there are deeper issues at stake here. And it's not just me saying that. This is what a lot of commentators, what people around Bad Bunny and other people have said, that there was a deep purpose behind that halftime show.
I love that we're in a place in 2026 where the phrase "people around Bad Bunny" is a real thing. Right. It means things.
I have sources around Bad Bunny.
Important people. And we do want to separate because, it's kind of fun. It's an NFL Super Bowl show. But there are, I think, real issues. And we want to kind of separate personal taste from kind of political undercurrents. And,
Correct.
And so, I think it's acknowledging that some of the outrage, of course, the president tweeted about it, said it was one of the worst shows ever. And it kind of reminded me of this clip from Jim Carrey accepting an award at the MTV Video Music Awards a long time ago. Here's cut one, but this is kind of how I thought. Here's how some of the country reacted.
I got a little bone to pick with the programming department. I like rap music as much as a nice, frightened Caucasian. But would it kill you every once in a while to play a little Fog Hat?
I was thinking Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
Why don't we just have Johnny Cash songs at halftime?
And there's some interesting things here, happening about it. And so it's like, so how much of it's personal taste? Okay, people don't understand the lyrics.
Sure. But
even that kind of has, I think, some interesting kind of subtext. Here's cut 3. Here's somebody who I think you flagged, his kind of commentary just on, hey, I'm an American and I'm watching
regular
the Super Bowl
fan
halftime show. So here's I think it's Common Scent is the Twitter account, and here's the reaction to it. Cut 3.
Why would I watch the halftime show or care if I don't understand what he's saying? Like, people are saying you're racist for not wanting to watch or support Bad Bunny, and I'm like, I think that's the problem. I think there's an agenda behind why he's performing, and you're a part of it. Even in soccer, bro, when they be having America News or something like that, these folks translate the post-game interview in English. So I need that at the Super Bowl halftime show. It's the Super Bowl. If you can't translate the song in English, big dog, I'm gonna need you to find somebody else, because I don't know what you're saying. And no, I'm not racist just because I don't know what you're saying, or just because I don't care about what you gotta say because I don't know what you're saying.
So I guess my question for you, Peter Schweizer, is when you found out and you heard that the halftime show of the Super Bowl was performed entirely in Spanish, as someone who has written a book, which is #1 in the country right now, and it's called The Invisible Coup, and it's about how American elites and foreign powers use immigration as a weapon, what was the first thing that you thought of?
First, I was surprised, and you've done, I think, some really interesting research that we're going to share about why the NFL chose to put Bad Bunny there. I don't know that they had a political agenda, but Bad Bunny certainly does. And that's what's interesting to me, right, is it's not just somebody who's going to perform totally in Spanish. You could have found other artists to do that. You picked this guy who has not only been outspoken on issues related to ICE and immigration, but the songs, one of the songs that he sang at the halftime show was, It Happened to Hawaii. And the song in, of course, Spanish, you have to translate the lyrics, is about how Anglos went into Hawaii and gentrified it and took the land from the locals, and how they're doing the same thing in Puerto Rico. So these are political songs, political messages, and we'll talk a little bit later. The symbolism and what he was trying to accomplish with the flags and with the call to unity, it was not ultimately a call to unity within the United States. It was a call to unity for the Americas, as in the United States, Mexico, Latin America, and the Caribbean all need to be unified and not have things like borders. So to me, it wasn't just the language. It was the politically charged message included in the language, and the use of the Spanish language was a specific political act designed to send a message.
So two things. Number one, you mentioned the song Don't Let What Happened to Hawaii.
Right.
That was actually performed. The most controversial thing about that song during the halftime show was not necessarily the lyrics per se. To me, it was the fact that it was performed by Ricky Martin, who, I'm sorry to say, has only become more devastatingly handsome over 25 years. Like, his song was La Vida Loca. My man is not living La Vida Loca. Ironically, he is hydrating. He is in bed by 8 o'clock. He's got a profound skincare routine. He looks amazing. And so
that's what you're here for the color commentary.
Congratulations to Ricky Martin. But I do think, and this is kind of what we want to do, I also thought, because it's kind of crazy to me that you just can't, there's a Super Bowl and it's got to have, and I'm watching it and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is this Peter Schweizer's Invisible Coup manifest on the grand stage? Because it's striking that the entire thing was in Spanish and had lots of different symbolisms. And it reminded me of this clip from another film. This is cut 2. This is a clip from Michael Douglas's speech in The American President.
America isn't easy. America is advanced citizenship. You've got to want it bad, because it's going to put up a fight. It's going to say, you want free speech? Let's see you acknowledge a man whose words make your blood boil, who's standing center stage and advocating at the top of his lungs that which you would spend a lifetime opposing at the top of yours. We have serious problems to solve, and we need serious people to solve them. And whatever your particular problem is, I promise you, Bob Rumson is not the least bit interested in solving it. He is interested in two things, and two things only: making you afraid of it and telling you who's to blame for it. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you win elections.
It's also how you sell podcasts. So with that in mind, we're going to tell you I'm going to say the 3 things I most blame for the political reaction to the Super Bowl halftime show.
So this is the political reaction, not the show itself, but the reaction to it.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
I think, and the number one is, because of the content of the show, is the NFL itself.
Yeah.
Right?
So why do they do this? So you explain, why would the NFL do this? Clearly, what is it? I think 78% of the American people, I think it's actually higher, it's in the 80s, don't speak Spanish. So huge base of your core audience doesn't understand the show, but they made this intentional choice. Why do they make it?
Huge base of your core audience today. Now, the NFL has been on a growth journey in every sense of the word. They topped out at $23 billion in revenue this year. They have a stated goal of achieving $25 billion in the next few years. And let me tell you how they plan on doing it. Latin America, right? It's like manifest destiny. They might as well be Christopher Columbus. They have seen 40 million fans in Mexico and Brazil. So this is the growth market they want to attack. They've obviously had some stuff in Europe as well, but they love how the time zones line up for the game kickoffs and everything else. This has been a concerted effort since basically 2005 is when the first football Americano game was played in Mexico City. Roger Goodell was named the commissioner the following year. And this is, they're very intentional about celebrating Latino Heritage Month. They do a lot. And you also kind of have to remember, in a post George Floyd world, that they have done lots of stuff to kind of like be more racially inclusive. And so they've embraced the social justice aspect of this.
Right.
They've actually partnered with Jay-Z after 2020. And so, it's funny to look at the last 5 Super Bowl shows have been like J-Lo, which we'll talk about. Bad Bunny actually prominently featured in the 2020 halftime show with J-Lo and Shakira. But after that, hip hop artists, Dr. Dre, Rihanna, Usher, Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah. I was wondering why there were no country artists, right? I figured they would switch like rock, rap, country. All that's gone.
Well, since Jay-Z got hired, it's been all hip-hop. Before that, it was as white as this shirt. You know, it was Katy Perry, Coldplay, Justin Timberlake, and Maroon 5. So, no, it's been very intentional. And I think what's funny is with the elevation of Bad Bunny, you know, he, as you noted, in the 2020 halftime show with J-Lo and Shakira, which was criticized for lots of reasons, some of which included FCC violations because of the adult nature of some of the dance moves. But you said Bad Bunny shouted what during the halftime show?
He said, Viva la Raza. He shouted it, which means long live the race. And what do you mean by the race? Well, La Raza goes back to this concept. I talk about it in my book, the cosmic race, which is this idea that the Latin American left has embraced. It's been around for 100 years, this book, which says that, you know, Anglos, that's white people like us, are sort of inherently selfish. Our culture is bad. Our culture is individualistic. We're selfish, has terrible things to say about blacks and about Asians. But Latinos are the cosmic race. They're the superior race. They're going to transcend because they're more caring, they're more given, they're more collectivist. So when he shouted that at the 2020 Super Bowl, I mean, that was a political message that he was trying to convey. And it really ties in with so many other things that he said. That's why, to what you're saying about the NFL, makes complete sense to me from a marketing standpoint. But again, why do you pick this guy who already was on the stage in 2020, made this provocative shout, has made all these other statements? There are certainly things in this show that were highly political. To me, it's not enough to just say, well, okay, the NFL, they're looking to expand to Latin America. Let's get in a Latin artist. They picked this particular Latin artist to do it.
And they picked him in the second administration of Donald Trump, who campaigned largely on immigration enforcement. It was not a secret. You knew this would be a big issue. It's one of the reasons why you wrote a book about immigration as a weapon. The irony, of course, is the commissioner of the NFL, Roger Goodell, who has overseen this, you know, profound push leftward.
Did you look into where he lived?
I did. Yeah, we had this. He lives in Bronxville, New York. And just in case you're wondering, the stats on Bronxville: 87.5% white, less than 2% Hispanic. And Hispanic Latinos maybe 7% of the population,
right?
1% African American. So Roger Goodell's neighborhood is whiter than the Super Bowl shows were prior to 2020, and it's interesting that he's now kind of helping to push this. So the NFL, having actively participated in lots of stuff, including these kind of like social justice messages they make the stadiums have in the end zone, it become less popular. So the NFL is the first entity I blame for the reaction everyone sort of had to the halftime show.
But then you say the reaction, but I just want to push back on this. But they caused this, right? They're responsible for the reaction, but they caused this because of the choices they made. I'm not saying, again, I'm not necessarily opposed to having Latin artists even singing in Spanish. It's this particular guy that they chose. I think they own this.
Yeah, well, that's why they're number one on the list, Peter.
Okay. Good. Just
no one's letting them off the hook.
Good. All right, good. Just making sure.
Number 2 on the list of people I blame to the fact that the halftime show was controversial is the artist himself, Bad Bunny.
Yeah. What can you say? First of all, I never heard of this guy before. I mean, I have old taste in music, but yeah, in 2020 he made that political statement. He was at the Grammys. He said get ICE out of the country. And again, you're entitled to your opinion, but the point is that really something, especially when you're claiming the message of so-called unity? Is this the guy that you want to be the front? So he's been controversial. I know that he had the recent world tour that he took, but he left out the U.S. because he claimed to be fearful of ICE raids. I would also point out, by the way, that consistency is not this guy's strong point. Because on the one hand, he says we should not be enforcing our immigration laws, right? People should be able to come here. And yet in that song I mentioned earlier about Hawaii, he's mad because Anglos are moving to Puerto Rico and buying houses. So he's mad about that, doesn't want us moving there, but he wants people from Latin America to freely come to the United States, legally or illegally. He seems to have no problem with that. Not really consistent. I don't know how he squares that circle.
So to your point, it's not just that this man is a Latin artist. He's been a political artist in many ways. He endorsed Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. He said there's so much at stake in this election for Puerto Rico voters in Puerto Rico. He shared several clips on his social media platforms of Kamala Harris saying, "I'll never forget what Donald Trump did and did not do when Puerto Rico needed a leader." And he also, and this is, I think, maybe a less reported piece of it, he also has an interesting kind of backstory with some Venezuelan ties to the Hugo Chavez government.
Yeah, this is very interesting. So he got his start on a record label or an entertainment company called Rimas. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, RIMAS, Entertainment, independent record label, signed him. That was co-founded by Rafael Ricardo Jimenez. He was a former captain in the Venezuelan army and was a senior ranking official in the Hugo Chavez government. That's, of course, the radical government in Venezuela. We just took out his protege, Maduro. What's interesting is this guy had a military background, and in 2014, he provided $2 million. He was a co-founder of this entertainment network that launched, Bunny's career. So I think that's particularly interesting and puts it in, again, a political context, because I don't recall having studied Bad Bunny's political views, which I have to say was sort of agonizing. I see no criticism, by the way, of the Chavez government. I see no criticism of the Cuban government. I don't see anything resembling anything like that. So he apparently thinks it's okay if Latinos oppress Latinos. He doesn't seem to have a problem with that, apparently.
Well, and actually, the message of love is bigger than hate, and this message of unity, as many people have pointed out, and this is going to lead nicely into the number 3 person I blame for the reception to the halftime show. But the reaction of unity is not like unity. It's unity with a specific purpose, and it's unity of all America. So to your point, Venezuela is one of the many countries he mentioned, because Venezuela is one of the countries in America as defined by all the countries in North, Central, and South America. And so this idea is like a blending of the Americas into one America, in which the United States stops being the sovereign entity in which it currently exists.
Right. Yeah, a borderless world. And we're going to get to that in a little bit. But that is certainly the take in Latin America that President Sheinbaum has about what all those flags really represent. And it's a blurring of borders. It's an elimination of borders, which is, of course, a highly potent message. So who's the third person? You blame Roger Goodell.
Mm-hmm. Well, the NFL at large.
The NFL, okay. Bad Bunny.
Yep.
And?
I have to say, I blame Peter Schweizer. I blame you, because I'm sitting. It's a Sunday evening. I'm sitting there. We're watching the Super Bowl. The kids are running around, and the show in and of itself, like, my daughter is into it. She likes the way that it was produced.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a Taylor Swift video.
The moving plants.
Yeah,
all that. Yeah.
The Spike Lee double dolly. I mean, like visually, it is like quite well done.
Okay.
And I even have asked some other some high school kids, like, hey, what'd you think of the show? And like, I didn't understand it, but I was vibing with it. Is the general consensus. So okay, and that's why it's interesting that you can't just sort of okay, it's not for me. Like the Kendrick Lamar thing last year, I didn't know any Kendrick Lamar songs,
right? But
I didn't feel it was subversive to American sovereignty per se. Although ironically, the lyrics they do have a very political message, but it doesn't mean to undercut who the United States of America is,
right?
But I blame you, because I work with you, and I know, and I've read your book, The Invisible Coup, how foreign powers and American elites are using immigration as a weapon. And I'm watching the most popular broadcast in the country for the year, and for 13 minutes, no English is spoken, and it seems to be a celebration of a culture and countries that include ones not the United States, and I couldn't help but think of you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And whenever you hear Bad Bunny again in the future, which might be quite often, I don't know if you've acquired a taste for his music, but you will think of me when you think of Bad Bunny. So that, but in all seriousness, I appreciate that. And I would not want to spend my time in the halftime show thinking about this stuff either, except for the fact that it was so in your face. Again, the guy that they selected to do this. And I'm sorry, Roger Goodell is a smart guy. I might not agree with him on some things. I might think the NFL should do things differently. I think the way they do the kickoff is stupid. But my point is that he's entitled to his opinions, but he's a smart guy. He knew what he was doing when he chose Bad Bunny to do this. And that these shows have to be pre-approved, right? It's not like yeah, we'll just wait and see what he comes up with. They pre-screen it. And so when you have these specific acts where we're going to have the American flag with a bunch of other flags, and we're going to talk about unity and we're going to talk about bringing the region together, that has a very specific message. And that is what Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum took away from the message, that it was not about unity among those living in the United States. It was unity for all of the Americas.
So that was my question. And that was one of the reasons why we decided to do this today, is that after I watched it, the halftime show, and knowing that, your book largely presents as evidence of what the plan is using immigration as a weapon, are the words of Mexican elite officials and other, Latin American officials themselves, right? We quote them as saying, here's what we're trying to do. So I couldn't help but wonder. I wonder what reaction those same people that are in your book had to this halftime show. It turns out they had a lot to say.
Yeah, they did. I mean, Claudia Sheinbaum thought it was wonderful that it was entirely in Spanish. She loved the fact that they shouted out countries all across the Americas in the song, not just the United States. She said it was delivering a message, quote, of continental unity. The best antidote to hate is love, which is a great concept, but what is the context in which they are saying that?
We've got a Mexican senator and a Marina leader in Congress emphasizing that Bad Bunny's music, quote, sounded louder than any speech. Mm-hmm. And he framed it as a reminder of the strength and contributions of Latin Americans. Other Marina officials, one Citali Hernandez, said she celebrated the show as a moment, quote, to not be a lukewarm or complicit in hate. The idea being that people that don't stand up against these types of things potentially are complicit in hate.
Yeah, Samuel Garcia, governor of one of the states in Mexico, said the same thing. This was a powerful social and political message. Ruben Marrero, who is a coordinator in the Mexican Congress in the debate, said that Bad Bunny has done more for migrants than the Mexican Foreign Ministry, saying that the performance was a bold advocacy for Latino migrants. So the point is this is a political message, and it would be fine if you did a presentation just saying, hey, lots of people have contributed to the United States. Latinos have, Europeans have, people from Africa, et cetera. Nothing wrong with that. But again, it's in the context in which this is said and done, which I think is so profoundly troubling and political.
Yeah, and I'm even willing to be kind of charitable about the NFL's position on this. Like, I don't know that the NFL wants to actively participate in these foreign governments using immigration as a weapon.
Right.
But I think, like a lot of the other American elites in your book, it's not that they share the ideological reason behind it. It's that they somehow are benefiting. They have aligned incentives.
Yeah, they're focused on the dollars. They're not worried about the implications of what they're doing, the larger implications.
And I think I literally think, like, while your book sits atop the New York Times bestseller list weeks after it came out, I just thought it was really interesting and timely that we saw, I think, maybe the biggest example possible. The NFL sees the dollar signs. They see the people in Mexico and Brazil and throughout South America. This is where they want to go. And so they have no problem elevating a voice, which some of the powers that do want to, I think, accomplish a political goal also see as a useful tool.
Yeah, exactly. And the point that we're trying to make is some people are out there saying, oh, it was just a musical performance. Why are you making this political? The point is the people that support Bad Bunny, that like his music, like his message, saying, no, don't ignore the message. That's the purpose. Here's a guy who is with ESPN Deportes, which is, I guess, their Spanish language service.
That's a good guess.
Yes, thank you. I'm on the ball about this. And he urged viewers to be a little more intelligent and look beyond the musical taste, emphasizing the show's message of recognition for immigrant Latinos in the U.S. He called it essential to set aside prejudices and focus on the social importance of the world's biggest stages. And there are other quotes that we can give. The bottom line is there were political messages deeply embedded in this, in addition to the songs we talked about, the inherent message. And so the question is, does this mean anything? In the larger context, is this just a story that goes away, or do you see this as something that, not the performance in and of itself, but have we crossed a cultural Rubicon where the biggest stage there's been this message sort of put in our face, and we can look forward to more of this in the future? Or do you think they're going to draw lessons that maybe we need to draw this back?
Well, what's interesting is not just like the Mexican elites and some of these other entities are interested in elevating this, but there was that CNN anchor who I think retweeted the claim that the 5-year-old boy as part of the halftime show, that's the 5-year-old that was detained by ICE. And what I think that speaks to is the people on the left are so looking for anything.
They want it. Yes.
That they can like see it's that. And and it's valid because for them, politics is so pervasive, right?
Right.
And I don't know, we're not better, in my opinion, as a country when that's the case.
I agree.
I don't think we're better, no disrespect to Kid Rock, when we have to have 2 halftime shows.
Yeah.
It would be nice if we could have like one thing, like that everybody kind of came together, like the first season of Ted Lasso, and it is. So I hope that it's not. I hope that we're able to kind of swing back the other way, although there seems to be very little desire when Donald Trump is president for people to want to do that, especially when they're on the left.
Yeah, and I think that's where we are in American society today. I remember, as a kid growing up, you love Elton John, you love the Rolling Stones, you love the Eagles. You don't really know what their politics are. You don't care. And even if you do know what their politics are, it's not part of the performance. It's not, I'm an artiste who is going to get you to see things that you are blind to. That kind of arrogance, I think, turns a lot of people off. I think the NFL needs to shore up and focus on its basic fans. I think the NBA made a similar mistake, and I think it's hurt them in thinking that fans will just, because they're into the game, are just going to go along with all this stuff. I don't think so. I think people are going to get tired. They're going to look for alternatives. Maybe it's college football. Maybe it's another sport. They're going to get tired of being sermonized and lectured to by the NFL.
It's funny you say the Eagles. I know several people who have been to Las Vegas to see the Eagles in the Sphere.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, there was a time when the Eagles would have been seen by older generations as countercultural.
Yeah.
But just in like, hey, you're kind of hippies,
Right.
But not in a way that's like upending government sovereignty and things. So it's just interesting to see the way the stakes seem to have grown and mushroomed in ways that are not better for us as a country.
I think that's very well said. We appreciate you in the audience always taking the time to listen to this podcast. It really does mean a lot to us. You can find out more about the research we do at thedrilldown.com. You can pick up a copy of my book, The Invisible Coup, wherever books are sold. And please do consider subscribing to this podcast. We appreciate that greatly. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.